Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Jawahir al-Quran wa Durar the Juz of Quran's verse. And in this session, inshallah, we will read from Surah, all surahs, short Surah Al-Sharh, within Azza This particular surah, Imam Ghazali did not choose anything from it, but we'll read it anyhow. Thereafter, we have Surah 18, figs, and back to Imam Ghazali's selection, Surah Al-Alaq. Then again, we have two surahs, Al-Qadr and Al-Bayyinah, before we return to Imam Ghazali's selection and Surah Al-Zalzala. So, because it's a short surah, inshallah, we'll read both the original surah in Arabic, and then a preliminary translation, just to get the sense of the surah. Then we'll go back to one verse after the other. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Have we not uplifted your heart for you, addressing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And we'll go back about the notion of sharh. In fact, one of the titles is the relief, and here it says uplifting. All of these are they contribute to the meaning of sharh, but we'll get back to it after we have this preliminary reading. Have we not uplifted your heart for you, addressing Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Prophet, relieved you of the burden which weighed so heavily on your back, and elevated your renown for you. So surely with hardship comes ease, surely with that hardship comes ease, more ease for the same hardship. So once you have fulfilled, meaning your duty, strive in devotion, turning to your Lord alone with hope. This is about sharh. And yes, there is relief. Yes, there is uplifting. Here we talk about enlightening. We talk about when the opposite of this you will have a sense that there is something heavy burdening you. You feel tight both physically and emotionally because of whatever tribulation or circumstances that you go through. And the people who faced most difficulties and challenges and tribulations, and they were the prophets. I mean, this is then those who are closer to them. The closer to the Prophet ﷺ you are in your behavior and your submission and your dedication, the more suffering you will find, because you have to address the ills of the society, and the society is not willing. Not then, not now. You try to change that which is evil, challenge that which is evil, speaking a word of truth, calling for justice in front of a tyrant. And it has been said, you cannot simply exchange al-amr bil-ma'ruf and advocating the good and prohibiting the evil. You cannot exchange that for more prayers. You cannot exchange that for night prayers. You cannot exchange that for voluntary fasting and voluntary sadaqah. That part, if we ignore it, it's going to consume the whole society. So here is almost like it's definitely expanding the breast spiritually, psychologically, if you will. And this is addressing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is not really a question to be answered. This is a rhetorical question, and it's a reference also to guidance, to faith, to revelation, and the light of the Qur'an. For in the Qur'an it does say فَمَن يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَن يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. He whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom God wants to guide, He will expand his, of course here breast, so that they will accept Islam. And in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir about Sharh al-Sadr, he said that we have enlightened it, نورناه, and we have expanded it, enlarged it. And the same thing about the Sharia itself is also expansive, but also at the same time it's easy. It does not require, in fact, it's against extreme measures. It does not aim at creating difficulty. To the contrary, the Quran itself, وَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the remembrance of the Quran, understanding it, memorizing it. He facilitated the dhikr based on the Quran. Reciting the Quran is dhikr. And also it has been said that enlightening the breast, the heart, with wisdom. Hikmah in the Quran has been also interpreted as the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So the mothers of the faithful were required to narrate, to convey what the Prophet ﷺ used to say or do. This is why we know the details of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. I was once asked by a young Christian woman that I addressed quite a large group of Palestinian Christian men and women at the YWC. You have the YMCA and have the women equivalent of that. And this young woman at the end of the lecture asked me, why do we need Prophet Muhammad after Jesus Christ? Like, what's the need? And this question, of course, can be asked about any prophet, really. Why do we need Jesus Christ after Prophet Moses? Why do we need Prophet Moses after Prophet Abraham? Why do we need a Prophet Abraham after Prophet Noah, etc.? And I remember saying that, of course, because we believe as Muslims, we believe in all the prophets, we believe in all the revealed messages. So it's not that we reject Jesus Christ, peace upon him. In fact, you'll find that you have that loving relationship with the prophets, and we send salutations and to the prophets along with our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I said, because Jesus Christ, peace upon him, was not known to have gotten married, and I said, this part we would not know how to behave if it were not with spouses, both. A woman, how she deals with her husband, a husband, how he deals with his wife. If it were not for the example of Prophet ﷺ, we know details. There's nothing, everything is known, even the way he showered one day, how he behaved at home. We need all this. Of course, there's the big question is that pretty much Christianity, how it evolved at the hands of Paul, dropped the law, the Mosaic law, if you will, the law of the Torah. And it has been also interpreted, the Sharh is preparing the heart, the breast of the Prophet ﷺ to receive revelation. And it seems that most scholars are of this opinion. And some went as far as saying that this is the splitting his breast when he was a child by the archangel Gabriel, and it is narrated by Ibn Abbas. And this is something that anyone who reverts to Islam will leave behind the tightness of the chest, the much of the negative energy that one accumulates, the worries, the wrong priorities and negative outlook, wrong outlook. The next verse, وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ, and the burdens relieve you of the that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieved the Prophet ﷺ of his burden. All the things that the Prophet ﷺ did before prophecy, no, and absolutely no grave sins, but it's always the moment you, in fact, revert today. Say that somebody reverts at age 40 today. Of course, people can revert when they are wanted, when they are 80. Let's say that somebody reverts when he or she is 40 years old. Literally, the concept of being born again. Literally, the concept of being born again. You have nothing of your previous sins will or shortcomings or nothing of that will remain on your record. You begin anew, pretty much like the Hajj, the pilgrim going to Mecca. If you do it right, you don't do mistakes during Hajj, specific ones. You don't shove, you don't offend, you will return the way your mother gave birth to you. It's not that you'll become a baby, but here it means the Hajj cleans your record, except of course what you owe people. You don't clean that in Mecca during Hajj. You should do that in advance. What you owe people, material things, you should give back to people. Mend things, fix things. That heavy burden, الذي, it's just like carrying a burden on your back, which weighed so heavily on your back. Sometimes we say, yeah, someone has the burden as if he is carrying the whole world, the whole universe on his shoulders. There is a painting by a Palestinian artist, an old man carrying the whole of Jerusalem in a sack by Suleiman Mansour. That's a burden, and it should not be the burden only of the Palestinian or the Arab. Or Suleiman Mansour himself, in fact, he's a Christian. It should not be left. The burden of the issue of Jerusalem should not be left only to Jerusalemites or Palestinians or Arabs. It's a universal issue, but we have our own relationship with Jerusalem theologically, historically, politically. It is part and parcel of the Islamic worldview. It's the first in the Hadith. The Prophet ﷺ and the Muslim community, that's what it says in the Hadith, 16 or 17 months towards Bayt al-Maqdis. So it's in the Hadith, 16 or 17 months. And the first Qibla is should be the first concern. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ, and we elevated your renown for you. And there are many ways. The Prophet ﷺ, his name is mentioned in the call for the prayer in the Adhan 5 times a day. And that call for the Adhan, that's practically every second you have an Adhan being called. As the sun, as dawn takes place every single second. If it takes place, let's say at 4 a.m. It's to the west of wherever you are. 4:01 is going to be, in fact, it's by the seconds because it's continuous. But let's calculate it minute to your west. 4:01, there's another Adhan. 4:02, there's another Adhan. Because where the Adhan is, ultimately you might have time zone differences. And it's going to be there also 4 o'clock, or whether it's to the north or the south. There might be, of course, differences, and there will be differences. That's one way. And we do mention the name of the Prophet ﷺ towards the end of our 5 daily prayers. We invoke God's blessings upon the Prophet ﷺ, and the same in this case for Prophet Abraham and his family. And when someone reverts to Islam, you have the Shahada. They testify to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the messengership of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have sometimes you have a whole session of Salah ala Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People do that. And not only this, subhanallah, today, Muslim and non-Muslim, when they say the Prophet, when they are speaking about Islam, when they say the Prophet, they don't even need to say Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they say the Prophet, that's Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam amongst Muslims and amongst non-Muslims. And his name now, we say all corners, not that there are corners mathematically, but from the north to the south, there are mosques and Muslims. There are mosques literally close to the area that is designated as the North Pole, not in that expanse of snow and ice, but where you have the last human habitation, villages and what have you. You have mosques there. And to the south, Cape Town has a large Muslim community with many mosques. One of them looks like the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, all over the world. Subhanallah. That's all included in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevating the name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we have, after mentioning all these favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it reminds us, surely with hardship comes ease. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Surely with that hardship comes more ease. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Twice yusr, ease, and only once usr. This has something to do with al-Tarif, the article, that hardship, the hardship. If we have in Arabic, this is like al-usr, a definite noun. It means we are referring to the same thing. The indefinite, it means we refer to two different things, or even twice that thing. So, for example, the ease. Yes. And if I may translate this into a language that could be more accessible, figuratively, if a door is shut, not only a window is open, two windows are open. Just simply to bring it closer home. فإذا فرغت فانصب. So once you have fulfilled your duty, strive in devotion, turning to your Lord alone with hope. وإلى ربك فارغب. So the prophets, the Prophet ﷺ, as we said, the Prophet ﷺ, all prophets, no grave sins, despite the biblical stories. They do include, they attribute to some prophets grave sins. That's never the case in the Quran. Of course, it means that we reject the truth validity of these stories. The Quran has the upper hand in this case. Where, for example, Prophet David, Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam, they attribute to him an adulterous relationship. God forbids. But nevertheless, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray at night extra prayers. He will be standing praying extra until his feet get swollen. You know how blood accumulates in the feet after long standing. And Lady Aisha, mother of the faithful, she would, his hair caring position. Like, why would you do this? Asking the Prophet ﷺ, mentioning that where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forgiven your shortcomings from before and after, things that took place in the past and things. These are shortcomings, judgmental mistakes, like in Surah Abasa wa Tawalla. And his answer was, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Shouldn't I be a thankful servant? And this is really the difference between the people of the hearts who are trying to follow the Prophet ﷺ as much as possible on this path. The believer will see his sin, his shortcoming, like in the size of the mountain, and the hypocrite will dismiss it as nothing. Suffice it, inshallah, and we will, in the next session, we will read Surah At-Teen. Subhanakallah wa hamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.